Hello, this is Jeff Johnson. Presentation on Pam's life in a psychosocial stage. Social work 322, human behavior in the social work for environment. 2, life history, oral biographical presentation. Pam's narrative. She is a 70-year woman who has an excellent job in her lifetime and got to go to college to change careers, which Pam did twice, asking different questions about the various phases of life in Erickson's psychosocial crisis and growth stages. In each crisis stage, Pam developed her culture in the 50s to 60s, where parenting styles were different in her lifetime. You could not express feelings for yourself back then like kids do now. There were times in her life that psychosocial crisis was in, especially in the intimacy and isolation phase. Pam went to Hawaii to serve in the military as a medical tech, meeting a pilot named George. George wanted to date her, and eventually Pam was pregnant with her daughter and moved to New Jersey to live with George's parents. Pam wanted to stay in Hawaii and continue her career as med tech and possibly move up in the medical field there. At the time, it was the Vietnam War era, and there were exciting health conditions were going on in Vietnam at the time. So this was a pivotal period in her life where she felt she did not get, or do the right choice or have the right choice when which we read and later in the story. 8 stages of psychosocial crisis, biophysical environment. Trust versus mistrust, birth to 18 months. Pam had a trike that she rode in her front yard, and it was in an adult neighborhood with no kids to play with. Pam's parents always worked and tended to her needs, not her emotional ones. So in the crisis stage, Pam was left with mistrust, and the mom was very hard on her emotionally. uh, to have that deep relationship with her mom. At this time, Pam lived at 420 High Street, Denver, Colorado. Cultural. In the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, parents were devoted to providing for their kids, not their emotional needs. There is an onus on the working to make enough for their kids to go on Disneyland trips with their family and drive to destinations like the Grand Canyon, Mount Rushmore, Yosemite, and White Sands, New Mexico. These came as rite of passage for kids growing up in this era. Kids were present but have yet to hear or be heard. There was no mental health back then except in institutions, and nobody wanted to admit to mental health diagnosis. The crisis for Pam was the isolation of not playing with other kids in the neighborhood. Autonomy versus shame, 18 months to 3 years. At this time, Pam enjoyed life with her friends and her brother. There was sometimes unsafe sibling rivalry, but this behavior was accepted in society back then. Kids could make a mistake and were given grace for it. At this time, there was much upheaval in the culture, and social norms changed from very cold social norms to very open. Pam had adapted to her family life and was very autonomous during this period, building her worldview on individualistic expression. Some of Anne Ryan's ideas were developed through her books of individualistic thought, such as Shrugged. Kids interacted with their environment by doing individually typed things because the parents were working a lot. The grandparents took care of Pam in a lot in the exosystem, so there was little deep affection for her parents, Melba and Papa. In the macro system, there was plenty of time saving food ideas such as shopping in grocery stores, entertainment, TV, and restaurants. Pam often ate out with her parents, and life in the macro system was perfect. In the development of the family microsystem, there was a breakdown in the relationship between Melva and Pam. Pam wanted to be a tomboy, riding horses and playing rough with her brothers and friends. Melva wanted Pam to be a girl and do prissy things. Melva even tried to get Pam to put a book on her head so she could balance it and walk like an astute woman. This was a psychological battle for Pam. So she rebelled against her mom's ideas. Papa, the dad, enabled Melva to do these practices with Pam. So Pam was not relieved to be herself at this time. Initiative versus guilt. Play age 3 to 5 years of age. Pam began to come out of her shell by playing with friends by horseback riding. She didn't get to play at home or have friends in the neighborhood with whom she could build social skills. Piaget said that children's cognitive growth is sharpened by the exercise thought through play. Also, in the book Human Behavior in the Social Environment, Vygotsky said emphasized the importance of play in the preschool. Crisis, lack of friends, and no connection with parents. The lack of friends growing up stagnated Pam's ability to use her social skills and set her back in this area. She started working um, on her cognitive skills, which she did well in school. Going to church was another example of how she would get angry at an adverse event, but never be resilient enough to figure out what went wrong and reconcile with that social group. Pam was industry versus inferiority, ages 5 to 12 years of age. The crisis was lack of social skills, which did not help with her self esteem. Pam was building her worldview at this age and wanted to be a lifetime learner. The social functions were built around her parents, what her parents did. For instance, Robert Potter was a mason and a Shriner, so he spent time in the so she spent time in the Masonic circle. She liked to be part of the organization that meant something to her that was had existential value. Pam also wanted to go to church, but quit going at this time because she lacked the social skills to keep going in the social system. Um, at this time, Pam got interested in science related activities, which spurred her to be a medical technologist. Identity versus role confusion. 12 to 18 years of age. And then I asked her, "Question: Do you feel that decisions at age dictated what kind of you were living today?" Yes, I wanted to be a medical technologist. At this time, Pam was interested in politics and wanted to vote for Barry Goldwater. She developed conservative thinking and liked being Republican. Pam wanted to be with her dad and did different activities with him. She had few friends she would want to hang around with and did not often go out on dates. Pam continued to do well in school and wanted to go to the University of Colorado, college there, to be a phlebotomist. There were no crises in her life at this time. Pam attended the University of Colorado as part of a sorority on campus. She felt good in school, and Pam graduated with a phlebotomist degree. Pam went to Hawaii to be employed by the Air Force as a medical technologist. The career consolidation theory states that the youth in transition to adult have a career in mind that generates growth and achievement. Pam wanted to finish her stint in Hawaii. Pam met George in Hawaii and they developed a relationship together. Eventually, Pam and George married and he was discharged from the Air Force. Pam left Hawaii with a psychosocial crisis because she left the career that gave her the most satisfaction. Then she spent 5 years in Point Pleasant, New Jersey, where her first daughter was born, and then George Jr., the son, was born 2 years later. Pam was still upset with leaving Hawaii and held a grudge against George, which led to the breakup in their marriage and subsequent divorce. At this point, Pam isolated herself from any other relationship except her children. Pam moved back to her home state in Aurora, Colorado, where she got a bachelor's of computer science degree. Pam worked with a software company and that made programs to help state legislatures manage their existing laws and data. Pam liked the position, traveled all over the United States to help other states get started with this new software. Even though she was successful in her job with a software company, this was a turning point in her life, continuing her isolated behavior, which started when she was younger. I asked the question of Pam, what activities and jobs do you look back on with pride, and what which one defined you as a person? I And she said, my children will be my legacy. Pam was let go by the software company and went to work for RTD, a transportation authority in Denver, Colorado. Her life declined and she became isolated from the outside world. She also took care of six cats. The two kids, Kelly and George, were successful in their independent lives. They both got married and had good families. Pam further isolated herself in her home and was depressed. Her home got overrun by stuff she collected and bought, and buying merchandise would make her happier. Pam retired from LTD to work at Home Depot for a while and eventually ran her collectible business, which she had started several years back. The crisis would be stagnation because she had never recovered from her fight with her husband and getting a divorce. And then I asked her, what advice would you give a younger person to pass on the wisdom to them? And she said, I wish I'd moved back to Hawaii and got a job later, maybe enjoying her time there a little bit more. Um, Looking back, Pam reflects that she treated her daughter the same way her mom treated her, what she regrets. She also looks back at her time in Hawaii, the best time she had, and it caused her to stumble after not advocating for herself to stay in a place she enjoyed the most. Pam has since moved to be near her daughter and repaired some of the damage in their relationships early in the earlier years. She is still doing her collectible business and her daughter takes care of her. Pam feels that she has some despair but is realizing her pattern of isolating and working on reconciling with when she makes a social mistake. Pam has no crisis at this time. Pam's narrative does include several crisis theories that caused her trauma, especially in the initiative versus guilt and intimacy versus stagnation stages. There was a breakdown in the microsystem with the family relationship, which caused a break in her ability not to build or keep those relationships outside the mesosystem. Pam's life. I think the trauma Pam caused by not growing socially and devastating at best. Ultimately, she continued trying to gain some of those social skills at the end of her life. She was very successful in her career and proud of her life accomplishments. I told Pam that she should be commended. I learned a lot from Pam, a powerful and intelligent woman who overcame adversity. Resiliency comes from never giving up faith and hope that circumstances will change if they stay in the course of our lives. Some of Pam's issues may not be the same, but they came from when everything was stoic and selfish. The generation built was our country as we see it today. We need to be grateful to that generation. Under the therapeutic side, I've learned a lot about using narrative to create a map of Pam's life that would be useful to her to learn and improve her life skills. Narrative therapy is a great interest to me and a blueprint how to build a steady practice, helping people rewrite some of the mishaps that happen in their lives. And that's the references. And thank you very much.